There's no question about it. The Orioles are slumping, and they lost another series this weekend to the Padres. But they won on Sunday to avoid the sweep, and it may have been because one of the bigger lineup adjustments Brandon Hyde has ever made as Orioles manager. I'll recap the weekend against the Padres coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, July 29th, 2024, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap all three games from the Orioles' series loss to the San Diego Padres this weekend as the Dads came in and took 2 of 3 at Oriole Park, winning it 6-4 on the O's on Friday, beating the O's 9-4 Saturday, but the Orioles came back and won it 8-6 in the finale on Sunday to avoid the sweep. The Yankees, unfortunately, did win 2 of 3 at Fenway Park this weekend, although Red Sox were 1 strike away from winning that Saturday game and couldn't put it away, which means the Yankees gained a little bit of ground. Orioles' lead is now just 1 game over the Yankees in the AL East heading into play on Monday. So we will talk about all of that, everything that happened in all 3 games, coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Supply House. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, h-vac, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. So we'll chat about Orioles and Padres. First of all, however, if you have not gone back and listened to Sunday's episode, please go and check that out where I broke down the 2 big trades that the Orioles made on Friday before Tuesday's deadline, picking up Christian Pache and Sir Anthony Dominguez from the Phillies and getting a starting pitcher in Zach Eflin from the Rays. Broke down how all of those guys will help the Orioles and assessed what the O's had to give up in those couple of deals. Again, that was an episode on Sunday. Again, apologies that I was out for the weekend, so couldn't do any live episodes when both of those trades broke on Friday, but gave my full reaction and analysis on that Sunday pod. And then back here for a Monday morning podcast. The voice is a little bit slipping from the weekend in New Jersey, but hopefully we will power through this episode and chat about Orioles and Padres. So the O's lose the series, drop 2 of 3. Again, they still sit in first place, still a game up on the Yankees, and are 62 and 43 on the season. Let's start with Friday, where this series began. Padres 6, Orioles 4 was the final score on Friday night. We'll do our usual weekend recap format that we've been trying out the past couple of weeks. What went right, what went wrong, and a shout out to someone for all 3 games of the weekend. So we start with Friday's loss. What went right? Well, I really thought there was fight in this Orioles offense on Friday. We know they hadn't been performing well as a group over the last almost month at this point. And even after they put up, 6 runs early and held on somehow in that game against the Marlins on Thursday, the offense kind of went right back to struggling on Friday night. The Padres got not even a good start from Adam Mazur. He wasn't expected to go deep into the game, but he only gave them 2 2/3 innings. And kind of the mushy part of the Padres bullpen, Austin Davis, our old friend Logan Gillespie, Yuki Matsui came in and kind of rolled with the punches and gave them 3 1/3 of really good baseball with 1 hit and no runs. Really, 1 unearned run was all the O's got in that time against those 3 guys. And you go to the bottom of the 8th, the Orioles are trailing 4-2, and now finally the Padres, after the middle guys get through it, are able to turn it over to their big-time, high-leverage back-end bullpen guys. And you're like, the O's waited too long, they lost their chance, and they're going to go down without a fight in this game. But then they fought. Santander just demolishes a leadoff home run off of Adrian Morejon to take the team lead to make it a 4-3 game. Then O'Hearn doubles off a lefty in Morejon. You don't see that too often. Big hit from O'Hearn. Westberg did strike out, but then Kjerstad had an infield single, put runners on the corners with 1 out in a 4-3 game. And Mountcastle comes through with a sac fly to tie it. Then the big thing was Cowser singled to keep the rally going. Mullins came up as a pinch hitter. First and third, 2 outs, did strike out to end the inning. The Padres had brought in their closer, Robert Suarez, at that point, and Mountcastle got the sac fly off him. Cowser singled off him. He's got incredible stuff, was an all-star this year. But tying it against Morejon and Suarez, who have both been amazing this season, that was huge for the Orioles. You could argue, yeah, they had a chance to take the lead, which would have been great. But even just tying that game after their offense, which had done a little bit early against Mazer and the bullpen, they got one in the second on the Jordan Westberg home run. Padres a little bit of a shoddy defense, allowed the Orioles to bring one home in the fourth, and then that was kind of it for them for a while. But to rally looked more like that early season offense that we saw from the Orioles, and liked what I saw there. And they showed it a lot more offensive fight and a fuller offensive game on Sunday in the win as well, which we'll get to in a little bit. Well, what went wrong from Friday? Well, most of the Orioles bullpen. Now, Grayson Rodriguez, although he wasn't being super efficient, was fairly cruising along in this game, had posted 5 scoreless innings against the Padres lineup, and then had to face the order a third time around, and that is when things got out of hand. Came back out there in the 6th, Orioles leading 2-0. He ends up allowing a leadoff single to Luis Ariz, and on a 3-2 high fastball, Jurickson Profar hits a 2-run shot to tie the game at 2. That would be it for Grayson Rodriguez in the 6th inning of this one. Goes 5+, allowing 2 runs on 7 hits, only 2 strikeouts to no walks with the 1 homer. And he was at 96 pitches after that home run. That's why he came out of the game. He was, I mean, again, 5 scoreless is great, but it wasn't the most dominant stuff you've seen from Grayson. He was kind of fine in this game, right? He was just fine on Friday night. But they go to the bullpen, and the O's turn it over to Birch Smith. They give him a clean inning. It's now 2-2, but there's nobody on base, no outs. And Smith, it was only a couple of outings, but had been basically lights out since joining the Orioles bullpen a couple of weeks ago. And then, unfortunately, he picked a bad time to have his first bad outing, and you turn around and he's allowed 2 more runs. The Padres have a 4-run 6 to take a 4-2 lead. Now, Keegan Aiken and one of the newest Orioles from Sir Anthony Dominguez, they kept it at 4-2, and the Orioles tie it in the bottom half of the 8th. And you go to the top of the 9th. Now, it's not a save situation, but a lot of teams do like to bring in their closer when they're at home and it's tied at the top of the 9th inning. And the Orioles go to Craig Kimbrell. And honestly, I couldn't believe they went to Kimbrell. Like, again, I've talked about on this podcast how much I love Brandon Hyde, how I think he's done just an amazing job helping to turn this team around, was a great manager during the rebuild, and I think is a great manager as this team has gotten good again. But I'm not afraid to tell you when I disagree with Brandon Hyde's decisions. Do I think he made the wrong decision putting Kimbrell out there in the 9th inning Friday? Absolutely. Do I think that makes him a bad manager? Absolutely not. Do I think he should lose his job? Absolutely not. What are some of you talking about out there? But that was simply the wrong decision, and not just because of the result. I am big on this, process over results, especially when looking at managerial decisions and GM decisions and things like that. Kimbrell had just thrown about 30 pitches the day before on Thursday afternoon. And while he didn't get any help from his defense and should have gotten the save in that game against the Marlins, it was still a pretty rough outing, almost 30 pitches, blew the 3-run save. Orioles had to end up somehow winning that game in 10 innings in Miami. But Kimbrell looked kind of gassed by the end of that outing. Even if you're not pulling him from the closer role or anything, any reliever who gives up 3 runs, has a tough time and throws 30 pitches, you probably want to give them the day off the next day. And Yennier Cano had only thrown 4 pitches the previous day to get that strikeout in the 9th in Miami to just send the game to extras. And I was like, perfect time to get Cano out there in the top of the 9th inning, give Kimbrell a little rest, try to get it to the bottom of the 9th, tied at 4. And I couldn't believe that Hyde sent Kimbrell back out there. Again, it's not about him losing his closer job thing. It's about he had a bad outing with 30 pitches the day before. Not usually great to send a reliever back out there. And for some reason, he did it, and it didn't have to backfire. He almost got away with it. Kimbrell went strikeout, then Camposano singled, and then he got Ariz to ground out, and he had a runner on second with 2 down in a 4-4 game, and you're facing Jurickson Profar, and he already homered in the game, but if you can get him out, you escape with a decision. Instead, Profar demolishes a 2-run homer to dead center field, 431 feet, to give the Padres a 6-4 lead and put that game away in the top of the 9th inning. And it was unfortunate. Again, I don't know where Kimbrell stands. Yennier Cano did get the save opportunity and the save in Sunday's win, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I don't know if that means Kimbrell's out of the job. We didn't hear a lot about that after the game Sunday. But overall, I can't believe they put him in there. It backfired. I don't know where they go stand with Kimbrel. They certainly need, I think, at least one more bullpen arm to shore things up at the back end. Maybe Sir Anthony Dominguez, though, can be one of those guys. And that's where the shout out's going. Sir Anthony Dominguez, who the Orioles acquired earlier in the day on Friday in the trade with the Phillies, sending Austin Hayes to Philadelphia, getting Dominguez and Christian Pache. Again, go check out Sunday night's episode for a full breakdown of that trade. But he got in the game pretty immediately, as immediate as he can after being dealt. He comes in there, and yeah, he did give up 2 hits, but he got a strikeout, and he threw a scoreless 8th inning in the top of the 8th to keep the game at a just 4-2 scoreline on 17 pitches. We saw the high-velocity fastball up to 99. We saw the slider a little bit, and that's already the highest average fastball velocity in the Orioles bullpen. He's coming out there throwing 97, 98, and then he turned around, and he got a really big high-leverage chance on Sunday. Orioles up 6-5. They give Dominguez the top of the 8th inning, and while he got some help with an insane catch in center field from Cedric Mullins, he threw a 1-2-3 inning on Sunday, throwing sinkers at 99, getting whiffs with the slider, and passed his first high-leverage test with the Orioles. Now he still has had his struggles with Philly this year, and that's one of the reasons why he was traded. We know how good he's been in the past, but again, full breakdown of that on Sunday's episode. But this could end up being a great addition for the Orioles. So far, so good. 2 scoreless innings out of the pen since trading for him. The stuff is electric. He's got a lot of good experience. He's been great in the past. This could be a great addition. And so far, again, looked good out there in an Oriole uniform. But the Orioles did lose the game 6-4 with the crushing home run in the 9th inning in the opener on Friday. But they had a chance to turn things around Saturday. Instead, I felt like the Orioles in this rut, not overall, I mean, they can certainly be worse than this. They're a first-place team. But overall, in this specific rut, I think they hit rock bottom of this slump on Saturday. And I'll tell you why coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. They can help you easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want, no subscription required. And they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations, pro styling advice, and I keep what works and I send back the rest. They make it easy. I don't have to shop. They save me time and effort, and shipping, returns, and exchanges all free. So it's style that makes you feel as you look. Get started at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That is stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kids fixes. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by the DK Law Group. DK Law Group is a Maryland-based law firm who is redefining the legal process with their modern approach. The DK Law Group is a women-led firm with Diana Kahn at the helm. She's been called an unparalleled legal expert by some. And one of the things you will quickly notice with DK Law Group is their transparent pricing. They believe in clarity, in cost, and no one should be left in limbo. So contact the DK Law Group today at dklawmd.com. And Locked On Orioles listeners can call today to schedule a free 30-minute consultation when you mention the tagline, Empowering Legacies. So the Orioles lost the opener on Friday, and they certainly lost game 2 on Saturday, falling 9-4 to the Padres in the second game of this series. What went right on Saturday? Well, actually, Dean Kremer was honestly pretty good in this start. One of his better starts in a while for the Orioles right-hander. Kremer in the Saturday game goes 6 innings, allowing 4 runs, but only one of them earned, and we'll get to that, on 7 hits. He struck out 7. He walked only 1. No home run balls against him. 105 pitches. A little bit of hard hit balls by the Padres here and there, but I thought Kremer looked good. I mean, only 1 run was earned, and again, you could argue he deserves 6 scoreless, and we'll get to why, but he had good fastball command. The splitter got 5 whiffs. I thought he was throwing that pitch kind of around the knees, dropping out of the zone. I like how he mixed his stuff. He trusted his stuff. He attacked the strike zone. This version of Dean Kremer is a solid number 4 starter. And if the Orioles add another starting pitcher before the deadline Tuesday, this is a really, really good number 5 starter in Major League Baseball, this version of Dean Kremer. Now, we know you don't get this version of Kremer every time out, and that is why he profiles as more of a 4 or 5 starter at this point in his big league career. But when he throws the ball like this, you can trust him to send him out there. I'm still not trusting him in a playoff start, but I'm trusting him to go out there and keep the Orioles in a game and throw the ball well. That is exactly what he did on Saturday. Now, what went wrong? Well, I think we can all agree it was the Orioles defense. And it all started in that second inning. And this was after Connor Newcomb, shout out to him, made an amazing play in the first inning on Saturday, taking away a base hit, throw from his backside to get the out. It was number 1 on SportsCenter top 10 plays on Saturday night. And then the second inning came. Second and third, 2 outs, 0-0 game. Dean Kremer gets Kyle Higashioka to hit a lazy pop-up into shallow left field. Arias going back there. Gunnar Henderson calling it going back there. It's the shortstop's ball. Well, really, it's the left fielder's ball, but he wasn't getting there. So Henderson makes the call. And then Arias just doesn't back off. The two collide. The ball drops in. The Padres score 2 runs on the air and take a 2-0 lead and just kind of never looked back in this game. You add it to the fact that on Friday night, like Heston Kjerstad made that just terrible looking play where he dropped that ball in left field in the big 4-run 6th for the Padres. Then the RBI double from Bogaerts a little later on Saturday. That was in the third inning. It was called a double, but ball went under his glove. It's a ball 2 years ago. He picks up and turns a double play. I don't know. You got Gunnar Henderson botching a throw in a double play chance that allows another run to score later in the game. Gunnar has had a lot of throwing errors this weekend, last couple of games, just general errors in the field. Something's off with him at shortstop right now. It's the bat's starting to come along again after a little slump, but he's taken that slump at the plate to the field and is not pretty to watch him play shortstop at times right now, despite the fact that he made one great play on Sunday as well. But it just felt like everything was falling apart in that game on Saturday. And just, I was watching, I mentioned I was out this weekend, but I was watching briefly when it happened on my phone on Saturday in that second inning. And just the feeling I had when that ball dropped, that pop-up, that felt like the rock bottom of the Orioles season. And again, they're 19 games over. They're in first place. They avoided the sweep. I hope that moment Saturday and that loss was rock bottom, because that was about as ugly as it gets. They gave up 19 runs to the A's, and they've blown multiple bad Craig Kimbrell saves and all that stuff, but nothing's uglier than losing games like that. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And this Orioles team has a lot of talent still, but something's not clicking right. And I hope that was the rock bottom. And I hope then winning on Sunday showed that maybe that was the rock bottom. It's only up from here. We'll kind of see what happens in this Blue Jays series this week. But man, that was tough to watch. Now, the shout out to on Saturday, though, does go to Cedric Mullins. Now, the Orioles offense was pretty much shut down. Michael King has been great this season, former Yankee, now with the Padres. He strikes out 9, gives up 2 runs over 6 1/3. But Cedric Mullins was the one guy that did anything for the Orioles in this game. And Mullins really had a nice weekend at the plate, kind of amidst all this trade chatter. The Orioles willing to, they've already dealt Hayes. They're willing to deal him, willing to deal Ryan Mountcastle. He's just hitting his way through it. And Saturday for Mullins, 2 for 4, a double, a home run, 4 RBIs in the game. And he was cranking the baseball. He had a 2-run double in the 7th. He had a 2-run homer in this game as well in the 9th. Both of those balls hit 106 miles per hour off the bat. They were now his second and third hardest hit balls of the year. The only one that's hit harder, it was a 106.4. That's a tough max EV to have, but to have 2 of your 3 hardest hit balls of the year come in a game in July, that shows that you've been really struggling, but also shows that maybe you're turning it on. That could be big for the Orioles. That could be big for Mullins. And also the home run he hit in the 9th off our old friend Logan Gillespie. That thing went 430 feet, longest home run of the season for Cedric Mullins, his 11th long ball. 6 of his last 9 batted balls are hard hit. That's an exit velocity of 95 miles per hour or more. With this offensive rut, it would be real nice, even though he's not playing every day, for Cedric Mullins to get it going. We kind of thought a couple of weeks ago he was getting it going, then maybe not. Maybe this is the time he's making better contact, driving the ball, extra base hits, playing amazing center field with that catch on Sunday. Like maybe this is the time for Mullins. That was a nice spot, but that was kind of the only nice spot in a disastrous 9-4 loss for the Orioles to the Padres on Saturday. But they had to pull it back together and say, we can't get swept at home. Even though that Padres team made it 7 wins in a row for them, right back into the thick of it in a playoff spot in the wild card in the National League. The Orioles said, no sweep. Maybe Saturday is rock bottom. And they won the game 8-6 on Sunday. Tell you how they did it to finish off the pod coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. So we'll finish off this episode on a positive note because the Orioles did not get swept this weekend by the Padres. In fact, they closed out the series with an 8-6 victory on Sunday to remain alone in first place in the AL East, just that one game ahead of the Yankees. And we start with what went right for the Orioles on Sunday. What went right was a new lineup construction for the O's. Now, they've done a little bit of tweaking throughout the year, but mostly you'll see Gunnar hitting leadoff, Adley hitting second when he's in there. Now, he got not a full day off, but wasn't in the lineup till he pinch hit and drew a walk in the 8th inning, and it was actually big for a 2-run rally in that 8th for the Orioles. But Brandon and I went a whole nother direction. Colton Cowser hitting first. Don't think we've seen that. Anthony Santander hitting second. Haven't seen that much. Gunnar Henderson was in the 3-hole. Then O'Hearn, Mountcastle, Westberg. Lineup looked a little more normal after that top 3. But that top 3, I don't think we've seen that exact top 3. We definitely haven't all year. Cowser, Santander, and Henderson. And guess what? General lineup construction doesn't do a huge number on a day-to-day basis for your lineup. And so I'm not going to go out and say that this lineup change made the Orioles offense look much better, but they did score 8 runs on 9 hits. They did draw 8 walks in this game. 8 of 9 Orioles starters reached base. And here's the thing, they only had 7 hard hit balls, but they did what they needed to do offensively. They had a 6-run rally in the 3rd inning against Padres starter Randy Vasquez. Got him out of there after just 2 innings of work. Offense just kept piling on and piling on and piling on. And then they got the huge 2 insurance runs in the 8th inning to add to their lead, which was big. Ryan Mountcastle had a nice day amidst the trade talk that he could be moved. He goes 2 for 5 with 4 RBIs in this game, a gigantic 2-run single for insurance in the 8th inning from Mountcastle. He's now got multiple hits in 3 of his last 5 games. Mullins, another multi-RBI day, along with the amazing catch that we've talked about. He goes 1 for 2 with a double, 2 RBIs. He drew a walk. James McCann. How about James McCann? 1 for 2 with a single and 2 walks and a run scored in this game. That was big for him starting with Adley out of the lineup, even on his bobblehead day. Although, again, Adley did get into the game in the 8th inning. But just, kind of a complete offensive performance. They didn't hit the home run ball, but they piled on. They got big hits. They drew a lot of walks. I think people will really like to see this. And again, I'm not going to say it's because of different lineup construction. I know Adley's been slumping, but you still want him in there pretty much every day you can. But hey, it was a change. The Orioles needed something to change. Their offense has been a huge rut, and this change may have worked. I am really intrigued, especially with today, right? The Orioles have a double header today, 2 games against the Blue Jays. Gives Brandon Hyde even more of a chance to kind of mix and match and do different things in the lineup with 2 games. Really intrigued to see these lineups coming out Monday, if they mirror more what we saw Sunday or what we've seen generally throughout the season. What went wrong for the Orioles? Albert Suarez. Now, it didn't start off that way. He got the ball. He went 4 scoreless innings. Orioles had a 6-0 lead hanging into the 5th with that 6-run third, and then it all kind of fell apart. He gave up 3 runs in the 5th. Luckily, Luis Arraez hit into a double play, or he would have had a nightmare scenario in that 5th inning, but couldn't even finish the 5th. Jacob Webb had to come in and finish off that 5th inning and keep it a 6-3 game. Yeah, he was okay in those first 4 innings. Like, you'll take 4 scoreless anytime from Suarez. But again, it's like, how much can you really ask out of Albert Suarez? Like, he's only getting 5 whiffs. He's throwing mostly fastballs and curveballs in this game. Like, the velocity was up, but it's a great story, just everything he's done. Now, his final line in this game, he goes 4 2/3. And again, it's not the worst start in the world. 3 runs, 5 hits, 2 Ks, 3 walks, no homers, just 3 hard hit balls in this one against Suarez on 83 pitches. But, as he started to struggle a little bit more, his last 3 starts, 11 2/3 innings, 13 runs, 19 hits, 9 strikeouts, and 6 walks. He's been flat out bad in the month of July. He's starting to fade a little bit, and it's showing more and more need for another starting pitcher, because right now, even with the addition of Eflin, you're looking at Burns, Rodriguez, Eflin, Kremer as your top 4. And right now, Albert Suarez is still your number 5 starter. That's why he got the ball on Sunday. And you could argue, okay, Cade Povich is now eligible to come back. He may be starting one of these 2 doubleheader games today. Like, Povich could slide back in and be the number 5 starter instead of Suarez. But wouldn't you feel better if you just got another starter instead of Povich or Suarez? You had another legit big leaguer in that, really in the number 4 spot, and you move Kremer down to number 5. You have Suarez is still on the team as a reliever, and he gives you depth. And quite honestly, like, Cole Irvin was bad again out of the bullpen on Saturday. I know the O's don't want to DFA him, but they might have to if they add more pitching, and Suarez can instead be your long man out of the bullpen and give you multiple innings. He's still going to help this team, I think, this season, but it's showing more and more, like, getting Eflin was amazing. They might need another starter before Tuesday's deadline. And then the shout out for Sunday's win goes to Yennier Cano, because Cano, who probably should have pitched the 9th on Friday, got the chance for the save on Sunday. 2 bad outings from Craig Kimbrell. He doesn't pitch Sunday instead. The Orioles have an 8-5 lead in the top of the 9th. Here comes Yennier Cano for the save chance. And honestly, Cano, he got the save. He gave up a run, got out of it. Orioles win 8-6, but he had some of the worst luck I have ever seen a pitcher have. Starts with the first batter, just kind of a low looping ground ball up the middle. Gunnar Henderson makes a nice diving play. It was going to be an infield base hit. For some reason, he tries to throw the ball. It gets into the dugout. Runner goes to second. Soft hit ball. Should have been an out. Just unlucky that it wasn't. Next batter, Ha-Seong Kim. 3-2 pitch. Fouls it off. It hits the plate and rolls in front of the plate. Umpire immediately calls foul because he thought it hit off of Kim in the box. But McCann picks it up in fair territory and tags Kim. Replay shows it never hit Ha-Seong Kim. It should have been an out and a big first out of the inning. Instead, Kim eventually hits a weird hopping ground ball to short that Gunnar can't come up with. Infield single, first and second, no outs. Then he gets a soft line out for the first out. Then Luis Arraez hits a ball that a changeup that was about to hit the dirt. Arraez's bat almost hit off the ground and just bloops it into center field for the luckiest base hit I've ever seen to load the bases with 1 away. I mean, Arraez is just a special bat control hitter, but that was crazy. Loaded the bases, you should be out of the inning. Loaded the bases, 1 out. Then gets a ground ball up the middle. Gunnar Henderson picks it up, steps on second for the second out, about to fire to first for what should be a double play, and Tyler Wade takes him out at second base. The umpires rightfully initially rule interference. It's a double play. Game is over. Orioles win 8-5. Then they go to the replay review, and somehow, now I get it wasn't the most egregious interference of all time. You could make some sort of argument that it shouldn't have been interference, but when you look at the replay, although Gunnar Henderson's body was kind of in the baseline, Wade's foot, instead of sliding straight for the bag, takes a left turn at Albuquerque and sends his foot right into Gunnar Henderson's foot, which trips him up, holds onto the ball, and doesn't throw it to first base. I know it wasn't the most egregious thing because it wasn't, he was still going, quote unquote, he was in the base path going towards the base. But when your foot goes sideways like that to take out an infielder's foot, to me, that's interference. And for some reason, they overturned it, and then Cano had to get another out. He had to get like 5 outs in this inning. And luckily, 8-6 game, first and third, 2 outs. He gets the out that he desperately needed, gets Cronenworth to roll over to second to get the win. Orioles win the game 8-6. That took a lot of perseverance, honestly, for Yennier Cano. I was really impressed by that outing. All he had to overcome. I mean, it ended up taking him 30 pitches to get through that ninth inning because of all the randomness and terrible umpiring and everything that had to do with it. But O's win the game. When you're struggling, you got to win it any way you can. And that is exactly what happened on Sunday as they avoid the sweep and they stay in first place. But next up for the O's, doubleheader on Monday against the Blue Jays. Starting at 3 o'clock, we will get to see the Oriole debut of their newest addition, Zach Eflin. Traded to the O's from the Rays on Friday. Check out Sunday's episode to learn more about him. He'll get the ball, and the right-hander Yariel Rodriguez, who's been pitching really well for the Blue Jays lately, will get the baseball with a 3.69 ERA in 39 innings on the season. Then game two will be about 45 minutes, probably after game one. Bowden Francis, the right-hander, will be the starter for the Blue Jays. Orioles haven't named a starter. My guess is they will either bring up Cade Povich or Chase McDermott to be the 27th man and start that game too. And then it will be interesting to see if either of them sticks on the roster after the doubleheader. But then I will be back on Tuesday recapping both games of this doubleheader between the O's and the Blue Jays. Hopefully the voice a little bit better, but I think it mostly held up in this episode. Then, of course, getting you any trade news, notes, rumors, trades itself that the Orioles may make on Monday as well. That's coming up on Tuesday's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.